Have you ever considered that simply keeping your mouth closed could save you from many problems? Throughout your life, many of the heaviest blows you received did not come from what others did. They came from the words that left your own mouth. In a moment of excitement, you revealed your secrets. In a moment of anger, you damaged a relationship beyond repair. In a moment of carelessness, you missed a great opportunity. They all had one thing in common. You spoke when you should have remained silent. You opened your heart to people you should not have opened it to. If you still question why you have not reached the point you desire, first look at your words. If you feel trapped in the same cycles again and again, the reason is not only what you experienced. The real issue is how you describe what you experienced. Most of the time, the greatest damage does not come from what others say. It comes from what you say and cannot take back. True power is the ability to control your language. It is time to use your speech consciously, not randomly. You do not have to suppress your emotions, but you must leave behind the language that pulls you down and limits you, because every word that leaves your mouth either sets you free or forges your own chains. Every sentence you repeat sends an instruction to your subconscious mind. Over time, that instruction turns into your reality. As Epictetus said, the wise person is careful when speaking. He chooses to be the master of silence rather than the prisoner of his own words. First step: stop explaining everything that happens in your life. Sharing what you go through may feel relieving at first. Expressing the emotions inside you may seem like it lightens the burden. But when you repeat the same stories again and again, without realizing it, you place your pain at the center of your identity. Constantly speaking about negative events makes them grow in your mind. Over time, you attach a label to yourself. Your past settles at the center of who you are. You become someone defined by what happened to you. Yet what you experienced is experience, not identity. But if you keep telling it repeatedly, eventually it becomes your identity. Some people feel the need to speak about their problems the moment a conversation begins. At first, it seems like a simple need to open up, but over time, you realize they hold on to those stories. As they speak about their pain, they feel special. As they are listened to, they feel validated. Gradually, this turns into an emotional dependency. Because if the problem is always outside, then nothing inside needs to change. But what if you did the opposite? Instead of repeating your problems, what if you spoke about your dreams? What if you talked less about what limits you and more about what helps you grow? If you change the story you tell, how would your life change? This is not about denying your feelings. It is about becoming aware of which narrative you choose to repeat, because the story you repeat eventually becomes your reality. If you constantly focus on what hurt you, a scarcity mindset forms in your mind. It is like watering weeds every day. But if you begin speaking about what makes you feel alive, what nourishes your spirit, your energy changes. Your conversations stop being draining. They become inspiring. You begin to see yourself differently. And the people around you sense that change. Many people believe that speaking about their problems is a sign of authenticity. But sometimes it is simply a way to avoid taking action. Talking constantly about financial stress, pressure, or what you cannot achieve is easier than facing change. Because real change requires silence. It requires self-observation. It requires consistency. And that is difficult. That is why people fill empty spaces with unnecessary words. If you truly want to heal and move forward, reduce the telling and increase the living. Stoic thought teaches us to focus on what we can control. There is always something you can control. Your inner speech and your outer speech. As Epictetus said. It is not events that disturb us, but the meaning we assign to them. If you say every day, "My life is very hard," your mind accepts it as truth. But if you say you are strong even in the middle of chaos, your mind begins to align with that strength. Perhaps you cannot immediately change your current circumstances, but you can change your story. That alone is a transformative step. When you focus on what you have and on your potential, life slowly opens. New people, new ideas, and new opportunities appear. Not because luck changed, but because your perspective changed. Second step, your words teach others how to treat you. The language you use does not only describe you, it gives instructions to your environment. If you speak about yourself with insecurity, others will see you that way. If you constantly complain or present yourself as inadequate, people will perceive you accordingly. This is not a conscious decision, but your words, your posture, and your energy show people who you are. Someone who speaks calmly and clearly does not create the same effect as someone who speaks while being carried away by emotional chaos. This is not pretending. It is not suppressing emotions. It is expressing them consciously. When you shout in anger, you communicate that you cannot manage yourself under pressure. But when you speak clearly and firmly, even in difficult moments, you send a different message. You say, "Without words, I am not a slave to my emotions." The trust and respect people feel toward you are shaped at this point. If you constantly use negative sentences about yourself, you present that identity not only to your mind, but to others. If you do not define how you should be treated, others will fill that space according to their own understanding. That is why your language must carry clarity and determination. Third step, do not tell everyone about your self-improvement process. The early stages of change are sensitive. An intention that has not yet taken root is vulnerable to external influence. Even a well-intended comment can plant doubt in your mind. When you adopt a new habit or make a major decision, it feels tempting to announce it. Speaking about it creates the illusion of accomplishment, but it is an illusion. Real change grows stronger through action, not discussion. When you receive praise at the beginning of a journey, your brain experiences an early reward effect. This can reduce your effort. Not everyone will understand your transformation. Some may underestimate it. Some may project their own fears onto you. True change does not need an audience. In Stoic philosophy, this is stated clearly. Do not explain your philosophy. Live it. Do not try to prove that you have changed. When the time comes, the results will speak. Fourth step, the promises you make to yourself form the foundation of your life. If you break your promise to others, your reputation suffers. If you break your promise to yourself, your character erodes. Even a small promise becomes a building block in your subconscious. When you keep it, your self-trust increases. When you break it, an internal crack forms. Breaking a promise in public is considered shameful. But breaking a promise to yourself is often ignored. Yet the real loss happens there. When you lose value in your own eyes, external respect loses meaning. Start with small promises. Make promises you can keep. Discipline is built through small steps. Fifth step, rewrite your story. However you define yourself, your mind adjusts to fit that definition. The moment you say, "I am always like this," you draw a boundary. Your past is not your identity. It is only your experience. As Seneca said, we cannot change the wind, but we can adjust our sails. Even saying, I have not succeeded yet, instead of I failed. Changes your mental frame. Instead of saying, I am unlucky, say, I am learning to create opportunities. Small changes in language create major mental transformations. Because when language changes, belief changes. And when belief changes, behavior changes. Sixth step, discipline. In speech is the mirror of inner discipline. One who cannot control their language cannot control their emotions. One who cannot control their emotions cannot manage their life. There's a fine line between honesty and THOUGHTL. Saying everything you feel immediately is not courage. True courage is speaking in the right way, at the right time. Words spoken in sudden anger can create wounds that last for years. Some sentences cannot be taken back. That is why discipline must exist not only in behavior, but also in words. Stoic teaching expresses this clearly. Words either elevate you or diminish you. Learn to pause before speaking. Think about where your chosen words will take you, because the way you speak does not only describe who you are, it shapes who you will become. Does what you are about to say truly carry value? Does it truly contribute something? Or is it only the result of a momentary emotional release? Every word either builds a bridge or builds a wall. It either makes your life easier or more difficult. And most importantly, it reinforces who you are within yourself. To bring discipline to your language is to bring discipline to your life. To bring awareness to your speech is to bring awareness to your existence. A person who knows when to speak and when to remain silent lives in harmony, not only with people, but with life itself. The greatest power is not in silencing others with words. It is in mastering yourself through words. Remember, speaking is easy, but being able to remain silent is the sign of true strength. Seventh step, silence is a powerful tool for managing stress and anxiety. Most of the time, when we try to overcome stress or anxiety, we attempt to do more. We speak more. We explain more. We keep our minds constantly occupied. Yet sometimes what we truly need is to do nothing at all. To simply remain silent. Silence is not meant to suppress emotions. It is necessary so that we can truly hear them. When you are under stress, your mind begins to move rapidly. Thoughts pile on top of one another without control. What you failed to do, what you must complete, what you did wrong. In that chaos, finding a clear solution becomes almost impossible. In that moment, pausing and choosing silence becomes essential. It creates inner space. When you pause, the storm on the surface of your mind begins to calm. You can observe the confusion within you. You can distinguish which thoughts are truly important and which are only the product of panic. Silence gives you the chance to step back. That step allows you to see events from a wider perspective and respond more consciously. Many people are afraid of silence, because in silence you must confront what you have been avoiding, the fears you suppressed, the questions you postponed, the burdens you carry within. Yet real healing begins precisely with this confrontation. When you can observe your emotions without running from them, you are no longer their prisoner. The Stoics did not see silence as an escape. They saw it as a source of strength. Marcus Aurelius often speaks of inner withdrawal. No matter how chaotic the external world becomes, he reminds us that a person must have a quiet place within. That place is not found in phones, arguments, or restless activity. It exists only within silence. So when stress rises, when anxiety increases, or when everything feels overwhelming, Instead of speaking more or struggling harder, pause. See silence not as an empty void to fear, but as a healing space. That brief pause of a few seconds can shape major decisions in your future, because silence allows your mind to refocus. It allows your spirit to calm. And most importantly, it allows you to reconnect with your own inner strength. Within that silence, there is a stability you can discover without needing any external approval. Remember, silence is not weakness. It is mastery. And the greatest mastery is the ability to preserve your inner silence, even in the middle of chaos. 8th step, do not share your deepest fears. The deepest fears you carry are like wounds that have not yet healed. Like an open wound, they can worsen in the wrong hands. Revealing your vulnerabilities to everyone is not always a sign of strength. When shared too early or with the wrong people, they leave you more exposed. Even if people have good intentions, they may not have the maturity to understand, carry, or respond sensitively to your deepest fears. Sometimes your words are taken lightly. Sometimes you receive reactions that unintentionally hurt you more, because no one can feel your emotions as deeply as you do. Often, what we desire is to be understood. We want someone to truly hear us. But if you are not at peace with yourself, seeking validation from others weakens you further. Deep fears are emotions you have not yet fully confronted within yourself. When other people's doubts and comments are added to them, your self-confidence erodes even more. Stoicism draws a clear line here. Seneca says that many of the things we fear exhaust us before they ever happen. Before sharing your fears, you must transform them within your own mind. Recognize them. Look at them objectively. Remove them from emotional outbursts. Only then, when you speak about a fear, it becomes not a cry for help, but an expression of awareness. If a fear still aches within you like a heavy wound, first share it with yourself. Entrust it to your silence. Write it in a journal. Face it during moments of reflection. Silence is the greatest healer of deep wounds, fears that you heal within yourself, without displaying them to everyone. Become more resilient against the influence of the external world. You are not obligated to display every emotion. Strength is not revealing everything. It is knowing how to express things at the right time and in the right place. Some things are sacred and should not be laid before everyone. True power develops in inner silence. Your wounds are sacred soil. Whom you choose to reveal them to determines what kind of future will grow from that soil. 9th step. Gossip is a silent poison. Every person you speak about leaves a mark in your mind. That mark either becomes a clear lake that brings peace, or a muddy swamp that weighs down your thoughts. Talking about others' lives, mistakes, and shortcomings may appear to be innocent conversation, but gossip is an invisible debt. First, it consumes the other person's reputation. Then, it consumes your character. Every word that carries someone's privacy from mouth to mouth eventually takes a piece of your own credibility. Gossip may seem to create connection in the short term, but in the long term, it erodes relationships. This is where the Stoic principle of choice becomes active. Epictetus reminds us that regardless of external events, you choose what to speak and what to remain silent about. Marcus Aurelius advises that if you cannot repair another person's fault, at least do not spread it. Every word is either a tool for repair or an instrument of destruction. The difference between criticism and gossip is intention. When criticism is directed to the person involved, it becomes a tool for improvement. Gossip, however, is a power game played in someone's absence. If you are not part of the solution, silence is the most virtuous posture. When a conversation begins, ask yourself, does this information place responsibility on me? If it does not, choose silence or change the subject. Invest your time in growth, not in gossip. 10 minutes of gossip per day becomes dozens of hours per year. Imagine dedicating that time to learning, creating, or walking in reflection. True power is not found in placing another person's reputation on the table. It is found in quietly elevating your own. 10th step. Being a good listener is a true presence. Today, everyone wants to speak. Everyone wants to be heard and understood. But real strength is not in constantly expressing yourself. It is in knowing when to be silent and listen with your full presence. Being a good listener is not merely a social skill. It is a sign of deep awareness. To listen without interrupting, without judging, and without preparing your response in your mind is rare. Most people pretend to listen. In reality, they are waiting for their turn to speak. True listening begins when the ego becomes silent. Epictetus reminds us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen twice as much as we speak, because listening is not done to change the other person. It is done to understand them. When you truly listen, people feel safe around you. They remove their masks. That is when real communication begins. People remember most those who truly listen to them. Real charisma is not born when you speak the most. It is born when you make others feel valued. 11th step. Speaking without thinking brings regret. We have all wished at some point to take back a word we spoke. But once words leave your mouth, they cannot return. They settle in another person's mind. They damage relationships. Sometimes they leave marks that last for years. When you speak in anger, you are not thinking. You are simply carried by the flow of emotion. Words spoken in that moment do not represent your true judgment. They represent a temporary emotional storm. Is why learning to remain silent is a form of power. Stoicism teaches us to create a space between event and reaction. True strength is not in following the first impulse. It is in observing that impulse and choosing the appropriate response. Marcus Aurelius describes being master of one's own soul as the real victory. Before speaking, hold your words in your mind for a few seconds. Will this statement truly solve the problem? Or is it merely a momentary emotional release? If it will cause lasting harm, silence is the greatest wisdom. Words are invisible weapons. They either build hearts or break them. True wisdom is the art of speaking truth in the right way. Imagine the morning after a destructive storm. Picture yourself walking through an ancient forest. Thin, flashy trees with shallow roots have fallen. But the trees that are simple, their bark cracked yet their roots deep, are still standing. The lesson of these trees is clear. Strength grows not in noise, but in depth. The Stoic perspective translates this into the human heart. Events are the wind. Words are the branches. Roots are your character. Psychology tells us we cannot control the external world, only our selective judgments. Constantly narrating your struggles is like exposing fresh roots to the sun. Energy scatters. Fragility increases. Seneca says that difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body. Today, before forming your next sentence, ask yourself, does this word deepen me or loosen my roots? Prioritize taking root, not performing, because storms test not the display, but the depth. Thank you for watching.